Peace and love. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love to all my reflections out there. Um, I hope you guys are having a beautiful day today. It's beautiful, it's warm, it's amazing out. Like, enjoy that shit, right? Get outside if you can today. But I gotta go in on this. We've been having all these conversations the last few days, and we have to talk about this. We have to start to understand morality and principles. When you start to understand morality and principles, you know there's a right and wrong, right? There is a right and wrong. There is right and wrong. Don't get hit with the okie doke. That's what I said. It says in the video. Don't get hit with people trying to lead you down false pathways, telling you there's no such thing as right and wrong. Look at the reality that we live in today. Is there a right and wrong way to go about things? Are there people doing wrong things in the reality today? Is that like, do you see wrong being done? Then there's a such thing as right and wrong. Like, people don't understand they're getting too far in. Don't get too far in. We have to start to perceive our realities around us and see what the deal is. When you see the government, when you see the way the environment's treated, when you see the way that some people are being treated, the way people's rights are being taken away, there is a right and wrong. There's a right and wrong. So when someone's trying to tell you that there's no such thing as right and wrong, there's no such thing as good and evil, they're setting you up in a sense. Now, my job is to have strong morals and principles within my own reality. Once I can define fundamental truth, I can know what's truth and not truth. Now, that will tell whether my action is right or wrong. When we look at intention, when you understand intention and we understand what's your intent behind things, you understand that there's automatically right and wrong as well, right? So in so many ways, when people try to tell you there's no right or wrong, that's a lie, because they always do it to try and justify an action that we know is either right or wrong. When you look at the government, like there's things that are being justified. People are trying to justify realities and mental mental perceptions on things that we see aren't based in fundamental truth, and they're using there's no such thing as a right or wrong to make it okay. That's not real. You can't get hit with the okie doke. Don't get hit with the okie doke, please. There are people saying there's no such thing as good and evil. There's no such thing. There is a duality to the universe, but then there is a oneness. There's a oneness that is the source of it all. However, when I start to define my reality, I have to start to really look at what is right and wrong in order to live in the oneness. In order to live in the oneness, you have to have first. That's why you go to the third eye, then the heart chakra. My third eye, and then you bust the crown, because third eye first allows you to see the polarity and the duality of the universe. So now I can start to say, this is good, this is bad, this is good for me, this is bad for me. If there was no such thing as right or wrong, you could eat anything you wanted. If there was no such thing as right or wrong, like, we wouldn't have a lot of the things being played out and manifested in our realities today that we all are looking at and saying, yo, that's not good. There'd be no such thing. There'll be no such thing. So there is a right or wrong. The thing is to not now demonize and hold on to these feelings that come with the ideas of right and wrong, good and evil, all that stuff. I'm supposed to be able to see what is evil. Like, what's an evil deed? What's evil thought frequency? What is the lower self? I'm supposed to be able to define it. But then I detach from it, because I have to be able to define it first to detach. That's why I did this string of conversations the way I did. I saw a video today that really sparked me. I was like, yo, this guy was trying to say there's no such thing as right or wrong. There's no such thing as good and evil. And he was using the fact that in the Bible it talks about women being saying that they're supposed to be in submission to men, and all these different things as why there's more because the Bible talks about anti-gay and things like this. Like, these are all things that have nothing to do with the notion of right or wrong. There's no such thing, right? When it comes to those types of conversations, when it comes to women's rights, we all know that women should be considered equal but different than men. So there's different roles. The problem in society today is that everyone is trying to be just like the other person. We don't understand the fact that people are equal and different at the same time. Everyone is equal. Facts. We are all human beings. We are all the human race. But there's things that are different between genders, between races, between all these things that need to then be honored within that in order to have true understanding of equality. right? Like you look at it, trees are all the same. However, but do trees express their energy the same way? Can you get the same nutrients and sustenance from one tree as you do another? No, right? But they're both trees though. So you have to acknowledge that they're both the same thing. But however, when I acknowledge the oneness, I also acknowledge that there's a separation within the oneness that makes each thing distinctly beautiful and amazing. So I can't sit here and say that there's no such thing as right or wrong. That's a fallacy. That's going to get you caught. That's going to have you doing things and be living a life that's going to lead you to being lost. Because we have to define right and wrong. Because there has to be a principle and a moral standing. Like if you don't have morals, right, then you're going to go around hurting people and doing. If you don't think there's anything right or wrong, you're going to be hurting people. You're going to be crazy, creating wild realities for yourself. And that's why this thought proposition and this perspective is wrong. It's a wrong perspective. Now, are you supposed to now hold ill intent in your heart for someone? No, right? That's the problem. Like, that's the thing. You have to detach. So I'm supposed to be able to see what's good and evil, see what's right and wrong, live my life on the right side, and then detach from having animosity and like hatred towards someone living on the other side of the spectrum or doing things on the other side of the spectrum because it's not me. At least I am morally and principally correct. Right? You have to be morally and principally correct. You have to understand what the principles are. Like once I understand that plant-based diet is healthy, it's right in so many ways, more than just morally, right? More than just like healthily for the body. Once I understand that, then when I eat meat and eat like if I went out and bought Skittles, that shit is wrong. It's wrong. It's bad for me. Like I can't sit here and say there's no such thing as right or wrong. There is a thing as right and wrong. So anyone who's trying to propagate the notion of rightness and wrongness and saying that there's no such thing, you know that they're leading you into a trap. It's a consciousness trap, right? So be mindful. Like be mindful. But again, like I said earlier, this thing comes with time. You have to start to affirm principles. We have to start to gain an idea of principles. You have to gain an idea of morals. You have to like have objectivity. You have to be able to detach. Like these things are key to now understanding right and wrong and moving within right and wrong and not getting yourself caught up. Because conscious traps, man, you gotta always peep. You see that like that's why you're supposed to be consciously aware, right? But you're not supposed to just be sitting here like calling yourself a conscious being all the time. Just I'm consciously aware. I have to be aware because you have to be aware because some people are leading you into forms of consciousness. There's many forms of consciousness out there. There's forms of it. So when you say you're conscious, like, okay, cool. Like there's a million forms of consciousness. But are you consciously aware? Are you aware of what consciousness are around? Not at the moment. So you have to now make these changes, right? That is a great, great, great problem within society today. So I just had to speak on this. Like I have to speak on this and I have to go over this because I'm not going to allow like someone to propagate some kind of wild stuff. And it was one of those videos that gets like mass circulated. And it was just like, I just couldn't sit here and just be like, yo, like people are actually looking into this and thinking this is proper, that there's no such thing as right and wrong, there's no such thing as good and evil when there clearly is. If there was no such thing as wrong, like people wouldn't be in a lot of the states that they're in today. We wouldn't be having the problems we have today on a global scale. If there was no such thing as wrong, there wouldn't be problems, right? If there's no such thing as right and wrong, there wouldn't be any of the things that we consider today. There's no such thing as wrong. Like what would fluoride be? You're like, well, it's your perspective on it, but what is it truly? So, because a lot of this is a bad Hermetic principle. People not understanding the Hermetic principle of polarity. The Hermetic principle of polarity states that within darkness and light, it's just variations of the two, right? You can have light, but there's not really a point where there's now like complete darkness because we don't really feel darkness, right? So it's just a variation of the two. However, you can be on one side of the spectrum more than the other. That's why you have to use law against law. So once I say, okay, right and wrong is a fluid thing. Facts. Factomatics, man. When I say there's no, like, right and wrong is fluid, right? You can be more in the right, you can be more in the wrong. However, just saying that you can be more in the right proves that there's a righter choice. There's a more proper choice. There's a more principled choice out of the two things. right? If you walk in here and I like can either punch you in the face or shake your hand, like there's a right or action in that, like in that scenario. Like there's a, and I know that's like a crazy like broad and like this, but like it's really like you have to start thinking about that basic notion because that's where the philosophy has to break down to. I can take it and make it as complicated and complex as possible when you look at the root of it. We have to talk about the root of it. There is a right and wrong at the root. There's a notion of rightness and wrongness within the universe that's outplaying all the time, right? Now, when you look at the people, the problem is that when you look at nature, there's not really a right and wrong in nature because nature is a natural state, right? We're not in natural states of society today. So to be living in your regular, normal society and doing things like that, right or wrong, is everywhere. There's an apparent duality throughout your normal state because you're not in a natural state. In nature, when the jaguar eats the rat, there's a rightness to that. Even though people be like, oh, it's wrong. No, there's a rightness to it. There's a correct because it's justified in what's going on, in a sense. In society today, you don't have a lot of things are so unnatural. It's you can't even create a justification for it. So you have to drop back and be like, yo, there's a difference. There's such a difference in right or wrong. The creative energy and the destructive energy. People be like, there's no such thing as good and evil. Are there evil deeds that take place? And you have to then they start saying from the perspective reality of them. Well, did you think that they played out? Do you think that every single person in this whole entire world understands principles and morals and has like a sound foundation in principles and morals in order to start to justify whether their actions were right or wrong? You have to ask that question. Where's the moral standing? Do people have enough moral and principle standing to then be able to say what they're doing is right or wrong? So you have to check that shit. Don't get hit with the okie doke. You know, there's right or wrong. There's a righter or a wronger. Like, you know what I mean? There's something that's more right and something that's less right. Do you think that because something is wrong, it shouldn't exist? Now, that's a good question, but it depends on in what aspect we're talking about wrong, right? When it comes to like the defilement of like humans, like when it comes to like, so if I take away your birthright, so like in society today, like they charge you for food that comes out of the ground for free. Like food grows for free, people. Food grows for free. That's what's crazy. When you go to a place where food can grow abundantly, you just see food grows for free. So when they take something that's not worth anything and put worth on it, they're taking your birthright away. Because your birthright is to be able to eat that. That shouldn't exist. That wrong should not exist, right? But then you see that there's like what we would consider wrong as well on like the yang scale, like the destructive nature of the universe, like hurricanes and floods and things of this nature. Those are considered wrong to some people. Those are considered bad things. However, those aren't really bad things. There's always a reasoning. There's always something that happened. Like that's not a wrong. You know what I mean? So that's why I say there's a natural, like when you think about the matrix, when we talk about the matrix, we talk about this thought frequency, this alternate reality that's set up that's based on the natural but not really it. You see that a lot of the things in there, those are wrongs that shouldn't exist because that whole reality shouldn't exist. There's a reality that's created that's a problem. The reality of the matrix is the problem because it shouldn't really exist. There should only be one, but they split it into two. So there's a whole reality and thought frequency that should not be around here, that we shouldn't be focusing on, that shouldn't even be shouldn't be allowed to pay attention to because it's so far from what natural truth is. And that's my issue. That's why I think that there needs to be a major push in the idea of moral and principle. We have to start like defining as a movement, as people, what's the moral and principle standing. Like that's where everything came in. That's why like you see people attract demons and shit when they start trying to say, okay, morally and principally, like this is sound, this is not, this here, here, here. Now, when you look at someone's, that's what I'm saying. When you look at a perspective, when it's like, okay, well, from this person's perspective, they were doing right, but okay, what were their morals and principles looking like? Were they morally sound people? Were their principles in proper place? Were their principles based on fundamental truths? If your principles are based on fundamental truths, and your like morals are correct and you're like living in objectivity, I guarantee you're not going to be like living on this dirt, like on this dirt side of things. It's not like you're not like the wrongs are not really going to be coming up the way wrongs are today. Like look at Look at the EpiPen, like the EpiPen for people who have like crazy allergies and stuff like this. Like this person just was like, yo, I'm about to jack the price up on this to like $700 a pen or $1,000. I forget. It's like some absurd number or something like that for one pen. Like that person, they had no moral and principle standing. Like you could just, it's just like apparent. They had no moral and principle standing. So like what they did was wrong. Like that's just wrong. Like why? Like it's wrong. Like it's just clearly, blatantly wrong. So to say like there's no right and wrong, again, you're getting set up. That's the consciousness that's getting set up. That's like the mindfulness movement, shit like that. You gotta, it's not. There's right and wrong. However, should you get so attached to these like wrongs and these wrong people and wrong feelings that like it makes you dense as a being? No, you should never be dense. You got to be able to let go of that shit. You need to be able to. That's why consciousness is consciousness, like, and being consciously aware. I'm consciously aware of all these things that go on. However, once I'm consciously aware, that means that I can just take actions to get myself away from these things that trigger these emotions and feelings. I should be now trying to create a reality that's separate from these things that I know are morally and principally wrong and objectively wrong. I should be trying to create a reality that's opposite of that and then living within that, right? So like if you think that like there's a wrongness in the way someone's treating you, right? If someone's treating you in like an improper way, you're gonna then find another person that fits in that role. So if I have a friend that treats me like shit, I'm gonna just get another friend because within that reality, now like it's right, it's working, and like I or morally and see like this person was treating me bad. I saw it, there it is. But then I just create something new, a choice, right? It's choices. Do you want to sit into a place and try and like think and make everything okay? Like where are we? And that's the problem. The problem is that we're sitting here and we're trying to establish what's right and wrong, but you got to remember that there's also like an opposing energy that doesn't want to like have to say or answer to anything. There's an opposing energy that still wants to do anything that it wants, and that's like what we have in the universe today. That's the opposition, right? That's the polarity. The polarity is you have some people who are trying to like really look at things and live in like a standing, right? A moral principle. So you look at all these things that was like, yo, there's a breakdown. What up? But when you see that there's like a distinct separation, right? There's some people who really just want to like pillage the earth and like take from like people and do all these things and look to advance themselves. You have to see that the duality is real. There's a right and wrong, and that's what I'm gonna stand on. You know there's a right and wrong. So anyone trying to propagate that there is no right and wrong is trying to lead you down a hole, right? They're trying to lead you down a conscious trap. However, you're just not supposed to attach yourself to these like dense ass feelings that come with knowing that someone is doing wrong all the time, or that there's an evil energy. You're supposed to attach yourself to the higher plane, right? I'm supposed to attach myself to the higher notions of it. That's why you're supposed to be able to see that there's you reflected into these like these negative things. However, you're supposed to better yourself because of it. You're not supposed to see it and accept it as you. No, you're supposed to see, well, what is this lesson? That's why they say when you see someone like expressing a lower part of yourself, it's a lesson to you on what to do. Because you're supposed to take the information that you see there, and then you're supposed to apply it to yourself to make yourself better. You're not supposed to just sit there and keep looking at this person and be like, well, there's no right and wrong in what he's doing, so I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to keep partaking in this thing right here. No, I'm supposed to look at it and be like, yo, bro, what you're doing is crazy. Like, this is low as hell. However, you do your thing. I'm going to do my thing because you're showing me that I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing this. That's where you grow. That's where growth comes from. That's where you can detach from this, right? But don't get hit with the okie doke, man. Don't get hit with the okie doke. Don't get hit with the okie doke, right? Within good people, like with you, that's why they say, like, when they look at it, it's like, oh, I heard, and sometimes you can think about this, like, they're even the worst person in the world, right? Even the worst person in the world has been good for someone and good to someone. Yeah, but the rest of their actions were bad. That tells you that not everyone is inherently all the way evil, but you could be like pretty far on the evil side. You could be pretty far on the righteous side and the good side, right? You can be like, but you could still act like a little better than this, like, or you could just be like 100% on the good side, or, but like you see, like there's always more. Like, you can always be more of one thing and more of another thing. So you have to acknowledge that there's a right and wrong. There's a fundamental right and wrong. I love myself, man. We gotta start talking about this stuff. Morals and principles are fact. They're necessary. Moral standing, principle standing are necessary. And it's hard, but that's the harder way to go about it, right? Like, that's like when we talk about the hippies, man. Like, I always like talking about the hippies, right? Because I get called the hippie, but I'm not a hippie. It pisses me off, man. But that's the thing about, like, yo, the hippies were pretty dope too. But you see that they didn't want to infuse their movement with any moral and principles. They didn't want to put any sort of foundational, like, understanding of truth, proofs, and morality into their movement. They just started moving. Exactly. Wrongs are necessary but not right. Exactly. It's a lesson. But, like, you're supposed to learn and move past lessons. You're not supposed to keep seeing repeated lessons all the time. And that's what we're at in society. It's like, oh, let me repeat these lessons. Nah. Right? What did the hippies do, man? They had it. And then all of a sudden they were like, nah, everything is easy, everything is right, everything is right. And it got to the point where people were just, like, throwing away their gifts because they were overindulging in things because they didn't think anything was right or wrong. There is a bit of right or wrong. We have to acknowledge there's a bit of right or wrong, because balance is an acknowledgement of right and wrong. It's not too far left, not too far right, my friend. So that was a great comment. Like, it's all about balance. Balance proves it. It does prove it, because you could be way too far on one side and way too far on the other side, right? And then you're in a wrong. Like, you look at Democrats and Republicans, man. They just be there's on one side or the other side. They're the same person. You listen to a Republican and a Democrat talk, like, they're pretty much arguing about the same shit, right? But just from the other side of the table. It's like, damn. It's like, yo, it's like, you ever hear two people argue the same point? That's what goes on. So don't get a part of that. Don't get a part of that. That's why you gotta do your research. Do your research. Be open. Be objective. Don't attach to something that you think, like, just be open. Do your research, and you'll find that there's principle. There's so much principle in reality. There's principle. And once I know principle, then everything else can just easily flow from there. I have to know, right? But people don't like to speak on they know. Like, know things. Don't just think things. Know things. Once you know things, then you start to see things. Because a lot of people get too worried. Like, I say shit, and I'll say I know. And when I say I know, people get mad when I say I know. Well, how do you know? Like, motherfucker, I know. Like, put in the time, you'll know. Like, and there are so many people with great information, right? They're afraid to say they know instead of they think. Don't say you think. If you know something, you really know it's true. You know it in here, and you know it in here. You've done, like, the research, bro. Say you know. I know there's right and wrong. I know there's right and wrong. Like, I know there's right and wrong. Like, there's no way you can convince me that there's no such thing as right and wrong. I think that everyone should be able to see that in society today. When you look at society and the nature of people and the nature of what we're dealing with right now, there is a right and wrong. Oh, man. It's scary stuff out here, right? It's scary stuff out here. Do your research, man. Don't, take a look at your reality. You can see what's right and wrong in your life. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be looking at stuff. I see where I'm right and wrong in things all the time, I see that I've done wrongs. Like, I see that there's wrongs inherent within my being that I have to actively work to correct, man. Like, it's tough shit. It's tough shit. Like, I feel like, that's why I did so much fasting for a long time. Like, fasting, was my way of helping us stop with wrongs. Like, it was a way to stop some of my wrongs because I had to get into control, of myself. You peep that stuff. Abstaining, that helps you. Like, things like this, because there's wrongs inherent. Like, you can be overdoing shit. You can be overusing your gifts. Sometimes I over talk to people, and it almost gets to the point where like I could have been a salesman. I could have been all these different things because I know how to speak and articulate thought and expression. So I did to the point where I taught myself to speak less. If it's a matter of balance, then surely we should not be all the way right all the time. Is it not that right is balance and wrong is imbalance? Okay. Ha ha ha. Here we go. So when we talk about wrongs, right? When we talk about wrongs, we're talking about there's two different sets of wrongs, right? There's different sets of wrongs. And you have to remember that balance always comes into play in some sense. Like if say I lived on a property, right? And I overate, right? All of a sudden I would eat all my food supplies. Balance would end up coming into play. Like balance you always come back to balance. Something always balances you out. Like there's always like you see an addict, right? An addict will start getting on a binge or something like that. Then they OD, and they get taken to a hospital, and then they have to go through some kind of treatment or something. Like balance is inherent in the universe. You get brought back to balance easy, but it's just walking in balance. And that's like usually the right way to do it because you don't overindulge. It doesn't mean that you have to be on the wrong, like doing wrong shit. Like, okay, this is why I say you can be right. Like you can be on the right side all the time. Now you're gonna find more opposition to yourself. That's where people try and say, here's right and wrong and balance. So if I know, right, if I know that fruits are the best thing for me to eat out of everything, right? But then I know that at the same token, like you like to eat cooked food or something like that, but you know cooked food is on the left side, right? Okay, you have to eat in the middle. Like you can have some cooked food, but you gotta always like know that majority of the time I'm sitting with what's right because I have to know what truth is. When I know what truth is, you're supposed to live in truth, right? So like you're technically supposed to be living right. You're not supposed to be living wrong. But when we talk about balance, balance is like a different topic because balance is an understanding of right and wrong. But like it's about the wrongs that we're talking about here, right? When it's like if you know that you're always supposed to be honest with people, should you lie sometimes? No, right? But at the same token, that's like why you have to understand there's morals and principles. That's why I always say there's morals and principles, and there is a right and wrong. Because like you shouldn't be just like, oh, I gotta lie a little bit this week to balance it off. I've been telling too much truth. That's some crazy shit. I gotta just once I know and once I form the principle and stuff like that, I gotta sit on the principle. I gotta sit with the moral and principle truth, and then that's cool. Now there are other things when it comes to balance that are different. Like when I talk about food, like again, cooked food versus raw food, like all these different things. That's there's a difference in like the severity of what it is. Now we talk about actions. When I talk about creation of systems, when I talk about creations of things, there's a right and a wrong way to create a system. There's a right and a wrong way to create an institution. There's a right and a wrong way to do these things because you could always see where it got a little bit more wrong than right. And that's where you got to break it down and be like, nah, that's not the truth. That's not the way. That's not the light. That's not what we're looking for here. So if I'm, again, you look at college, right? College, they try and overcharge people now and things like that. You see where that's wrong. The balance was flipped. At one point, it was like people were going and getting like real educated from schools. People were like, look at how people wrote in like the early 1900s. Even before that, their pen game was crazy, right? Language has been evolving, yeah, but they're like cognitive knowledge of things. We don't even know. We consider all people that came before us stupid, right? But were they? We don't know. So what's the balance? What's right and wrong? What's knowing and not knowing? These are all different things. But when you talk about matter of balance and like being all the way right all the time, it all depends on what aspect we're talking about. If you already created a principle on it, there's like a principle and truth. There's a principle of truth, a fundamental truth. You should always side it with truth. Be ye perfect, right? Be ye perfect. Be ye in the right all the time, right? Now, within that, you're going to be a human at some point. You're going to fuck up, right? You're going to make a mistake, but you're supposed to be siding with the right, right? If you're going to be something, you got to just be it all the way. And then if you fall off, like at least you're still all the way on the right. So like if you're a good person and all you're trying to do is be right, and then you make like a mistake, you're still going to be on the right side of things, right? We got people that are all like most of the time in the wrong who do like a little bit of right just to try and like make it seem like there's no such thing as right and wrong. No, there is right and wrong. Right and wrong is inherent. We have to understand there's right and wrong everywhere. That's why you have the third eye to peep that. Third eye was given you to peep right and wrong, like facts. Like it was here to deal with duality, polarity, and things like that. So because I have that function in my brain, I have duality in my brain. I have a right and left brain. Like so, there is two sides of things. There is a right and wrong. There is a good and bad. There is like a more righteous and less righteous. There's all these polarities. Now the thing is to understand them and not connect too much to them. Don't be dense because of it. You're supposed to see it, get yourself to a place that expresses your truth, expresses the fundamental truths that you know, and then you live within that. Less friction, right? As long as I'm living in a place where people are showing me expressions of the wrong and the other side, I'm in a place with more friction. I don't want to be it's frictionless living is the key, right? So that's my chat for today. Don't get hit with okie doke. Don't get hit with okie doke. Don't get hit with okie doke. There's right and wrong inherent in the universe, right? The problem is just find balance. Find balance. Find not even more than that. Find principle. Find objectivity. Find moral standing. Once you find morality, objectivity, and principle, you'll see what the right and the wrong are. Then you can now start to like break down your reality, right? But don't let anyone tell you that it's a free-for-all, because it's not a free-for-all. There's no such thing as free-for-all. If the universe was a free-for-all, it wouldn't be so mathematically popping, right? We wouldn't have so much ratio and shit like that. There wasn't any right or wrong. There wasn't any system, if there wasn't any structure, right? If it was always chaos, we wouldn't be able to prove things mathematically in the universe, right? So understand, there is an equation here. But for now, to drop off that load, it's mad nice out, right? It's super, where I'm at, it's 70 out here, bro. It's February. It's not supposed, like, this was a blessing, because I was like, yo, I was getting super tight. I was like, it's cold out here. The sun's a little bit off. Then it was like, nah, the universe is like, bro, I got you. Here's a couple days. Here's a couple days of some real warmth. So I've just been trying to enjoy it as much as I can. I've been working with kids and stuff lately. Kids are amazing, right? Kids are the future, but it's also a future to have, like, people always saying kids are the future and stuff. I agree with that partially, but I also think the future are like woke and like conscious adults and responsible adults, and like the more we can empower ourselves with knowledge and enlightenment, the more the kids will be the future. But if we don't empower ourselves with knowledge and enlightenment, kids will not be the future. They'll be more of the problem, right? So it's first on us as adults, us as people who are growing, to like really get an understanding and a grasp so that we can always impart truth, impart principles, impart morals in all the children, all the people that we come across. Bro, I love and miss you guys too, bro. Trust me. If this wasn't something for the greater good, like I'd be out of here. But trust me, everyone's gonna be able to experience this, like, and we're all just gonna be chilling because that's what it's about. We're gonna be growing and doing everything, and everyone's growing daily. I miss all my fam, I miss my frequency fam. There's a divine beings out there right now doing divine things. Facts. And we just have to all be able to keep pushing, because everyone's out here pushing. Everyone's out here expressing their consciousness and teaching. Keep teaching. Whatever your outlet is to teach, whatever it is, like people learn from comedians, people learn from musicians, people learn whatever your outlet is to get your message out. Get your message out. If it's in your art, express it. Beauty, right? Know it's a beauty. But no, thank you guys. Thank you. Like I wish I could express like my gratitude for the people that I've been able to spend like time with over the last like 6-7 months, because really they've just been some beautiful beings, especially last 2-3 months, man. Come on, I've been like around some real dope beings, like people. They're in the room right now. They're just like, I just gotta give a shout out because I'm grateful for you guys. Grateful. And I hope you all are doing well. I'm sending love and blessings to you guys every single day, all the time, right? And everything that I do, I keep my mind on the beauty and the blessings that we're going to be experiencing as we move forward in this journey. It's going to be some dope shit, but y'all are amazing. Send the love, send the peace, send all that. I am you, you are me. I am everything, I am nothing. I am nature, I am nurture, I am beauty, I am justice. I am power, I am peace, I am love and understanding. Me saying this to you and you hearing I am means that you are. It's the beauty of everything. So I'm just reassuring things that you already have in your head. So with that being said, I love you all. I love myself. Peace.